Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Grid Live Encore. I'm Ben Schneider, joined, as always, by Brandon Crossland. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. Brandon, how's it going?
All right, Ben, and it's been another hectic weekend around here, but the NASCAR world giving us a lot to talk about, as well as a little bit of the F2 side of things as well.
Yeah, let's talk about, we'll run through some of the other series quickly, and then Brandon will bring you back in for some NASCAR recaps. But first and foremost, as always, want to give a shout out to our Patreon supporters, Colin, Deshelle, Mark, Robin, and David. Your support means the world to us, and especially on a weekend like this, upcoming here at Portland International Raceway, our own Joe Samaniego will be on site covering all the IndyCar Series action and the feeder series there as well. So thank you more than ever this weekend for your support. If you'd like to join them, if you like what you see tonight, you can see on screen right there, we have an ambitious goal of $500 a month so that we can do what we're doing this weekend at Portland on a more regular basis, and that only expands our coverage for you, the viewers. Again, if you'd like to make a one-time donation, you can also visit the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description box below. We also now have super chats available here if you're watching us on YouTube, so you can donate through that option as well. And of course, as always, even if you can't donate, you can follow us on all of our social media platforms here as we continue to grow this motorsports media outlet here at Grid Network. And thank you to one of our regulars, Upright Fossil. Can't stick around tonight, it looks like, but he says, I hope you all give proper congratulations to the engineers and safety crews after the Priest crash. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Upright Fossil, and cheers to you as well. And I guess, on that note, maybe bring Brandon back in here real quickly. I know we don't cover Cup Series here on this show, but rare Saturday night race for them at Daytona. Did you get to see what happened with Ryan Preece? And, of course, Ryan Blaney as well had a massive hit into the turn 4 wall before then.
Yeah, I was actually up in the booth that night for the Tennessee Walking Horse National Celebration. It's a big thing here with our radio station in town. But, yeah, I did have it on standby, and I did see the Ryan Preece flips, and we were jaw dropped on that. Another man in the booth with me as well is also a big follower of NASCAR, so I got to go show him that. And like 13 flips for Preece and sent to the hospital, thankfully okay. But man, it reminded me a lot. I said it out loud, it reminded me a lot of Elliott Sadler in 2003 Talladega, that big one that played a big part in the NASCAR IMAX movie, actually, and just showcasing how the R&D center worked and how they, even back then, how they were looking at crashes, especially after post Earnhardt. Definitely safety was, the buzzword, and it still is today. So that was a big part of it. And then, man, Chris Buescher and RFK, just another big storyline. Really happy for all of them. And Prosper, Texas, getting a lot of memes right now, just for being where he's from. I think that's pretty cool too. Another kind of like a Texas Terry Labonte, if you will, kind of now for Roush Fenway Keselowski. And again, we're seeing that pattern, Ben, where Brad is, he's right on par with Buescher whenever Buescher's successful. And he's literally the one pushing him to the win, kind of DEI style there at Daytona. So that's really cool to see. And it still stings that Brad Keselowski is not the one making it to victory lane yet. That's just part of being the boss, I guess. It's going to come for him, and hopefully sooner than later. But he's had a very victorious past. So certainly he can go through some more hard challenges here before he can take victory lane as well. But yeah, Chris Buescher getting the win there and solidifying himself as a real championship contender. And that's wild to me that RFK has really climbed this high this quickly. Although it hasn't really been a quick climb, has it? It's been very, very slow and methodical, especially since the departure of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. You go back to all that, but there's a lot to unpack from that race. And Chase Elliott not making the playoffs, Bubba Wallace in, I could go on and on.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say it's been relatively quick since Brad got there. I don't think anybody expected them to win right out of the gate, given where that organization has been in recent years. But, he's really turning around. Obviously, Chris Buescher's picked up a handful of wins now, and Brad keeps driving like this himself. He's going to win one himself as well. I know that for a fact. Adam Lemmery's in the chat as well. That was a very scary crash for Ryan Preece. It was like a toy car flipping. Glad he walked away. And Joe Samaniego, Buescher, 4th seed in the playoffs, and all from the last 5 races. Yeah, really peaking at the right time. I think we have to start looking at him with this format as a legitimate championship contender in that 17 car.
Yeah, I tell you what, there wouldn't be that many people that would be sad if Chris Buescher took this thing home and won the championship.
Yeah.
Or Brad Keselowski either with this kind of year.
Yep. An Upright Fossil saying all that safety goes into all this racing we enjoy. Open wheel or stock cars and prototypes are more fun when we can enjoy the sport without the tragedies. Thanks, guys. Thank you as well, Upright Fossil, for sticking around and chat here. All right, well, let's run through the F2 weekend here real quickly. We had a bit of an unusual incident take place here in terms of how the race was classified. You might remember the infamous now Belgian Grand Prix from 2021, where Max Verstappen really just ran 1 or 2 laps under the safety car. 1 lap was classified, and that was what the race results were deemed to be. Half points were awarded. It was the biggest farce since the 2005 United States Grand Prix. I think everybody's been looking for ways to try to avoid that happening again. We had a similar situation in the F2 sprint race with the weather this weekend. Only a handful of laps were run under safety car. So congratulations to Isak Hadjar on picking up the sprint race win. Unfortunately, he doesn't get any points to go with it. He does get the stats, though. It's nice for him to say. But no points were awarded in the sprint race here. So those are the results. You can see down there, Clement Novalak in P8. He was the winner of the feature race. A bit of a surprise given how his season has gone. He only had 2 points going into the feature race and now comes away with a full 25 for winning that. And our own Kobe Lambeth on yesterday's Grid Live wrap-up show, he actually made Novalak his one shining moment. Here's what he had to say about the newest F2 winner.
This may surprise a lot of people, but I'm gonna pick somebody from Formula 2. Got to give a big call to Clement Novalak for getting that feature race win and at Zandvoort very earlier today. I believe it was on at 4 a.m. Eastern time. I was up watching that. It was quite the Formula 2 race. A lot of chaotic things happening, and especially major championship implications, which I'm sure will be covered tomorrow night on Grid Live Encore. But the reason why I'm giving my one shining moment to Clement Novalak is he entered today, as deep as we are in the Formula 2 season, with only 2 championship points, and then then the caution fall at the right time for him. He was able to execute perfectly, got that clean air, and he ended up winning. It's really crazy that someone this deep into the season only had 2 points this year, only scored 2 points. And then the only time he scored points this year was during a sprint race at Baku. And now he scored max points in the feature race. And for a driver, his second full season in FIA Formula 2, to not be finishing inside the points, to basically be running in the teens most of the time, and then to go out there, win this race, I find that very, very impressive. And plus, driving for a team like Trident, which you don't typically see running up front in these Formula 2 races. So Clement Novalak was a surprising winner, and this was actually his very first win in any type of motorsport competition since 2019. So it's been a long time coming for him. I just find it very impressive that someone who typically runs towards the back of the grid to come out here, dominate, and win a Formula 2 race. Just quite a run for Clement Novalak.
And we'll also pass our congratulations on to Novalak. Certainly helps him in his championship standings, although he is very far back based on how the beginning of his season went. But I'm sure he's going to enjoy those points that he picked up with the win. And also congratulations to Zane Maloney and the young American Jack Crawford as well, rounding off the feature race podium. Trouble for the championship contenders, though. You see Teo Porcher down there alongside Frederick Vesti. So no harm, no foul there in terms of their championship battle, remaining 1-2 in the championship standings. A rough weekend for all the championship leaders, but through all the chaos, it allowed Novalak to go through and pick up the win. Now, a side note, sorry about that. A side note in terms of a driver that you might remember if you're a Formula 2 fan from some hot water he got into last year, Yuri Vips, was dropped by Red Bull after a Twitch streaming incident. He ended up getting a 2-race deal with the Rahal team in the IndyCar Series to finish out the season for them, so we'll have much more on that story as it continues to develop. And of course, like I said, Joe Samaniego will be on site at Portland this weekend. He can give us any updates as that situation continues to develop. IndyCar silly season very much in full swing here. And on that note, let's transition over to the INDY NXT Series, who had a race at Gateway this weekend as well. Christian Rasmussen, no surprise there, picking up yet another win and extending his championship lead over the rest of the field there. Hunter McElroy, I believe, is still in second place there. You see him not having Rasmussen not opening up as much of an additional gap as he could have, with McElroy still picking up a strong third place finish there. But a great battle for the win with all three of those guys up front, and Louis Foster you see up there as well. Rasmussen had quite a moment, though. Jamie Chadwick was trying to stay on the lead lap going into turn one. She drifted up the track a little bit. That got Rasmussen way out of the groove. Fortunately for him, he was able to recover from it and go on to pick up the win. But unfortunate night for Jamie Chadwick. We've been talking about her a lot this year, of course, trying to work her way up through the Indy ladder after her success in the W Series. Looked like she was starting to take some steps forward with a few top tens in recent weeks. Bit of a step back this weekend, finishing a lap down in 12th place and having that moment there. So we'll see how her development continues to go here as she finishes off her debut season in Indy NXT. And again, much more on what goes down in Portland this weekend with Joe Samaniego being on site there for that series as well. Now on to the ARCA Menard Series and an East Series combo race as well. William Sawalich essentially wrapped up the East Series title with a win at Milwaukee this weekend. Jesse Love finished second. Of course, he has the ARCA championship pretty much sealed up himself in terms of the main series, but still increasing his points lead there with Andres Perez Solara finishing down in 7th, and Frankie Muniz, not such a great day for him down there in 12th. Those are your top three in the ARCA series. Sawalich continues to open his gap up over Luke Fenhouse, and that's how the ARCA East standings look after race 7 of 8 for that series before their finale at Bristol later in just a few weeks' time here. So that's an update on ARCA and how things stand over there. And we'll stay in Milwaukee and bring Brandon Crossland back in for this as well. A bit of an emotional weekend for GMS Racing. Of course, we got the news that that team is going to be no more at the end of this season. They will be shutting down their Truck Series operations. So, Brandon, just before we talk about Grant Enfinger, I know a very emotional win for him based on everything that's happened with that team. But what's your reaction to the news that GMS will be closing their Truck Series doors at the end of the year?
Oh, real sad. I mean, it's been a staple team of the Truck Series for forever, and just a big building block for Chevy drivers that are making their way up the ladder. And their loss is going to be very noticeable. And really, what I've been mulling over since the announcement of it is you got a guy that's potentially going to win the championship here with Grant Enfinger, and then you've got these other two great young talent alongside with that team. You've got Raja Karuth and Daniel Dye, some of the class rookie drivers this year. And of course they keep giving Daniel Dye the Fox camera for some reason. I don't know what that relationship's all about. I think it's him and Michael Waltrip. They have a relationship together. But anyway, those are two drivers that need somewhere to go. It's too much good talent to waste. They're going to find somewhere. It's just a question of where right now. I don't think we've heard anything in the rumor mill happening yet. But yeah, that's a big loss there, and it's another crushing blow really to Legacy Motor Club being the parent there. The switch to Toyota. You had this Noah Gregson catastrophe, if you will, happen, and now one of your big your big pieces of your puzzle is closing their doors, including the fabrication, GMS fabrication. So all that part just leaving, it's going to leave a big impact. And with them switching to Toyota, I guess it makes sense that GMS is it's kind of fitting that they're closing down, because that would mean that GMS would have to switch to Toyota if they're going to keep that alignment. So yeah. Maybe there's something into that. Maybe there's something into that manufacturer change that made it difficult for them to continue. Who knows?
Yeah, I unfortunately, I've got to say I'm not surprised by the news. I was certainly hoping that we'd see them back next year in some capacity. But I mean, you want to talk about top teams in the series, championship winning teams in this series over the last several years. GMS is right there at the top of your list. And, one of those teams that reminds me of, I guess, thinking back to like 2017 or so, losing Red Horse Racing and Brad Keselowski Racing back to back. And, it's just kind of hard to imagine the Truck Series without those teams. I think GMS has certainly established themselves at this point. It's going to be very weird not seeing them on track next year, and sad to see them go. I understand that Daniel Dye's camp put out a release that he does have a ride lined up for next year. He's not ready to announce exactly what his plans are, but we will see him back in 2024. And I would be shocked if Grant Enfinger doesn't land on his feet somewhere. That driver is somebody that I think deserves a lot of credit for what he's accomplished in the Truck Series over the last several years. I don't know if ThorSport reunion might be on the table or where else he might be able to find a ride, but he's certainly earned the opportunity to stick around.
Yeah, no doubt. He is a wheel man, and he deserves somewhere to go after this. I think of Daniel Dye. He says he's got a ride lined up. I hope it's with 43 somewhere, because he really hasn't had a career outside of that petty number. Always kind of had that relationship there. So hoping they can keep that tradition moving.
Yeah, that would certainly be nice. But congratulations to Grant Enfinger and what this means for his championship fight. I'm sure it's going to be a thrilling one, and I imagine everybody at GMS would just be over the moon to be able to drop the mic like that and go out on a championship. So we'll see what Enfinger can do, and the entire rest of the organization. Yeah, Brandon?
Yeah, I just want to comment on the Milwaukee race weekend. Sure. It's really cool that the trucks get a Sunday afternoon. That was fantastic. And also, Milwaukee looks beautiful. I'm really impressed with the brand new paint around the facility. Of course, we saw that last year with ARCA being there, but it's looking really nice. And all these improvements there, bringing a place back, that another one of these places, bringing it back that people thought were long gone, never to return. One of the oldest tracks in North America, really. It's such a great history there at the Milwaukee Mile. You got to think that these rumors about Milwaukee returning to the IndyCar calendar have some weight to them with the amount of attention they put into this place. You wouldn't keep that many stands around there if you're not bringing IndyCar back. It's got to happen.
Yeah, well, we certainly know the IndyCar Series could use a couple more ovals. And I think Milwaukee fits right in there. Would be absolutely perfect to add onto the schedule. But a great event this weekend with ARCA and trucks. And again, congratulations to Grant Enfinger. I know that team's been through a lot this year. A lot of people don't know exactly where they're going to line up. Hopefully they can all find new homes in terms of finding work in this series for 2024. Now, on another note, let's talk about Ty Majeski real quick. He was in the news after failing pre-race inspection multiple times, and some pretty severe penalties, we understand, could be handed down to that number 98 team. They confiscated, NASCAR did, confiscated, that is, a right rear tire from that team. Crew chief Joe Shearer was ejected from the track. Majeski forced to start from the rear of the field yesterday and serve a drive-through penalty after taking the green flag. NASCAR stated that any additional penalties could be announced early this week, and we'll see if that has any impact on Majeski's rest of the remainder of his season, his championship fight going forward. But certainly not a good omen for that team, I don't think, given some of Carson Hocevar's comments as well afterwards, after what he had to say at the conclusion of a race this weekend. So we'll see if anything else comes of that, but that's just an update on where that team stands at the moment. Now let's move on to Daytona and the Xfinity Series race. And there we go. Sorry about that. It looks like the results got mislabeled there. It says page 2, but that's obviously page 1. Justin Allgaier, you see there, the race winner over Sheldon Creed by maybe about 6 inches, about as close as you could get in that finish there. So, Brandon, I'll start with Allgaier here. Obviously, great for him to get that super speedway win. Great to fire up a junior motorsports team. I know we've been talking about them kind of being behind the 8 ball in terms of their standards in recent years. But when you look past Austin Hill and John Hunter Nemechek, do you think Allgaier has now established himself as the clear number 3 favorite for a championship run?
Yeah, I mean, he's always the perennial favorite. The Xfinity regular, loves the Saturdays, and he's going to be with Junior Motorsports, we believe, until he decides it's time. But yeah, he's starting to solidify himself here in late. Yeah, I've still got my eyes on Sam Mayer, even though we don't really have any road courses left, save the Roval, to maybe sneak his way through somehow. Also from that Junior Motorsports stable. Josh Berry really has fell off the horse here, coming at the end, still winless. So really looking at it right now, it seems like week to week we figure out who our top 3 are for the points, and the way they lie right now, it really is Austin Hill, JHN, and Justin Allgaier. I can't really think of a good third one besides Allgaier at the moment. But I mean, Mayer is probably your best bet besides those 3, as far as what's trending right now. What do you think?
Yeah, well, Mayer's certainly trending in the right direction with his results. Maybe not so much this week, but Daytona is always kind of a wild card. But I think from a momentum standpoint, you have to look at Justin Allgaier. I know Sheldon Creed's still looking for his first win, but back-to-back runner-up finishes. We'll talk about him here in just a moment. But maybe that team's peaking at the right time if they can get a breakthrough win coming up to Creed's one of his best tracks, one of his favorite tracks at Darlington. Maybe
Right.
you start looking at him there if he gets into the playoffs and peaks at the right time. Daniel Hemrick's been known to come out of nowhere and surprise us all before. So there's still a lot of names that I think you wouldn't be surprised to see them up there fighting for a championship. But I think it's definitely Hill and Nemechek who are the top two. They've been kind of in a class of their own.
Yeah.
Allgaier may be the best of the rest, and I think the standings would certainly indicate that. Obviously, getting the win this weekend is going to be huge for that team's momentum going forward. But I think, as of right now, I know the term "Big Three" is certainly a bit of a cliche, and
Is it ever?
We got to start talking about Big Fours, right? Because that's
Yeah.
what our championship comes down to, right? But
Mhm.
yeah, I think Allgaier, he kind of reminds me of like a Scott Dixon, for example. Somebody who's a seasoned veteran who is liable to win on any given Saturday, I guess in this case here, the Xfinity Series, or Friday night this particular weekend. But kind of surprising how Junior Motorsports, again, but I know they have a very high bar that they've set for themselves, but I think they've been a little bit behind that this year, and maybe this can be what turns that team around. And certainly with Mayer's recent success as well, got to think they're peaking in the right at the right time, in the right direction as we head into the playoffs here. Let's continue to look down the order. You see Sheldon Creed there. I mentioned him very briefly just now, but Brandon, like I mentioned, coming up to one of his favorite tracks at Darlington. He's had a couple of near misses there in the past. Do you think he can make up for these back-to-back runner-up finishes and go one better this upcoming weekend?
He might be able to, and I only say that because I really love Darlington Raceway, and only because it's such a different animal. You can be terrible at every other track all year long, but when you come to Darlington, it just depends on whether you have that skill set. And you look back at the history books, Kyle Petty did not have that skill set. He wanted to turn into a bass tournament pond, which I still think is one of the funniest stories about that track. But yeah, Sheldon Creed definitely has that knack for the egg shape kind of configuration, and the 3 and 4 where you get your Darlington stripe or you're not running fast enough. He's got that down pat, but this year still winless. And one of the big flaws when you talk about Sheldon Creed this season has just been little mistakes, little things like he's got the drive, he's got the speed, they've got the team, but it's little mistakes there that you can't get to the last lap with your same momentum. Then there's just some sort of thing that's cost him only 4 top 5s to speak of all year. And but if you can get to Darlington and do what he knows he can do, it's not really an easy place to pass. So that might work well in their favor. They just got to nail their pit strategy, and he needs to just focus on the task at hand, and he might be able to do it. He's definitely good at Darlington, and I'll talk about someone else who's good at Darlington later on.
Well, let's talk about the third place finisher, Daniel Hemrick. Brandon, I don't know about you. I'm a little surprised that Daniel Hemrick still hasn't picked up a win with Kaulig Racing here in the, I guess, more than season and a half that he's been with that team after winning the championship, and the final race is still to date his only NASCAR sanctioned victory. Kind of hard to believe that's the case for Daniel Hemrick, but I thought he was going to fit right in at Kaulig. I thought Kaulig was certainly trending upward, perhaps more so than any team in this series. And yet, despite driving that flagship number 11 car, still looking for that first win. He's come close several times, came close Friday night, but are you surprised that we're still talking about him searching that first win at Kaulig?
No, I'm not actually. And I take this from a different angle, because I don't think the 11 car at Kaulig it's no longer the flagship entry. I think there's been a paradigm shift here. We've got where, even though he's not in there full time, all of a sudden it's the 16 that gets the spotlight. It's the 10 that gets the spotlight. And it's Chandler Smith and the guys like that have been getting the attention. And I think Daniel Hemrick's kind of been left out in the dust there at Kaulig. When your only win came from your championship race at Phoenix, where you did what you had to do to take the championship at the very end. We talked about that for a long time. He's not really around much, like on TV. He doesn't get up to the front very often, and so it's kind of hard to speak about him. And I'll read the stat: 5 top 10s. Oh, excuse me, 5 top 5s, 12 top 10s, only DNF twice. That's the same as Sheldon Creed. So, and Sheldon Creed's stats are actually awfully similar to Daniel Hemrick's, although we've seen Sheldon Creed kind of up front in the pack a lot more, it seems, than we have Hemrick. But that's just been from my eyes. I remember some of the DNFs from Hemrick kind of more this year than finishing well.
Well, I don't know. Maybe we have different definitions of flagship. When I think flagship car, I think that's the number that's most associated with that team and their history. So, for example,
I guess, with history, yeah.
So you could say, like, I think Slapshoes mentioned this in one of his Mark Martin videos. The 5 car was and is still the flagship number of Hendrick Motorsports. That's the number that was associated with that team when they first started out.
Yeah.
And despite all the success that Jeff Gordon had in the 24, Jimmy Johnson had in the 48, the 5 even going away for a few years after Chase Elliott came up into the Cup Series and they brought the 9 back for him. You think of Hendrick Motorsports, you think of that 5 car as being most attached for the longest of that team's history. Obviously, that's the case with the 11 team at Colleague Racing, and then the 10 team came along, and then the 16 team being that 3rd car. And obviously, AJ Allmendinger elevated that 16 car and did some great things with that team, winning a couple regular season championships. Arguably should have at least been in the Final Four last year, made a Final Four the year before that. The 10 car now, I guess you can call it the all-star car with all the Cup drivers that we've seen in there and a couple of other drivers getting their opportunities to run part-time in that car. Chandler Smith does have a win this year in that 16 as well. But I still think when I think of Colleague Racing, I think of their main car. I think of the car that started that program that is now expanded to 2 teams in the Cup Series as well. I think of that 11 team. And it's a little bit surprising to me that Daniel Hemrick still has not found victory lane with that team. I feel like AJ Allmendinger maybe made them look a little bit better than they were with the success that he had, particularly in the Xfinity Series. I know he hasn't had quite as much success in the Cup Series side of things now that he's gone full-time there, but obviously picked up a win for that organization before they even had a charter a couple of years ago at the IMS road course. So when you think of the flagship driver, how about this? When you think of the flagship driver for Colleague, I guess you think AJ Allmendinger at this point. But when you think of the flagship team, the flagship number, particularly in the Xfinity Series where it all began for them, I've still got to go with the 11.
Yeah, it's not too often that I disagree with you, Ben, on this show, but I guess I just look at it from a different perspective. It's like all-time, like when I think of Hendrick Motorsports, like sure, Jeff Bodine started it with the 5, but your all-time perspective of their legacy is kind of what I think of as the flagship. I mean, sometimes flagship doesn't mean starting at all, but like big picture, flagship, Hendrick Motorsports, it's 24 all day to me. Even though there's been different moments with the other numbers, and like with the 5 even going away for a while, that really hurt. That really hurt me whenever it was gone. I still went back to that Twitter account for the 5 team just to, come say hello, kind of in a way. Like I knew I figured they were never coming back still, but it's still like the Casey Kane 5 on there. Like someday they'll return someday. But besides that, no, it's cool that we actually disagree on something because we usually agree on everything. So I'm kind of impressed.
I'll tell you what. I'll ask you this: why did you pick the 24 of the 48? Does that mean? Does that mean you ranked Jeff Gordon over Jimmy Johnson?
I'm sorry, the 48. Excuse me, I completely forgot.
Which is fine. I know a lot of people do rank Jeff Gordon over. I mean, if Matthew Owens is in our chat here tonight, I haven't seen him yet, but he would certainly do that.
I instantly
Jeff Gordon fans up there would do that, but I was just curious why you went there instead of with the 48 with Jimmy.
I don't know. I instantly forgot 7 championships, so that was weird. So forget that. Yeah.
Maybe the flagship of the 90s would be the 24. The flagship of the 2000s would be the 48. And then I guess it's up in the air. I mean, Elliott got a championship in the 9 and Larson got a championship in the 5.
Yeah, that sounds
maybe
right.
It's up for grabs between those two. But when I think flagship, I think where it all began and more of the historical. Like Venturini, for example, the 25 team. I feel like that's kind of when I think Venturini's main car, I think of a 25, even though obviously Jesse loves running away with the championship this year in the 20, and that number's had a lot of success too. I still think of the 25 first. That's what I think of when it comes to flagship.
If it makes you feel better, when I think of Roush, I think of 6. So but that is the flagship. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, but then that number went away for a little while too.
Yeah, it did.
David Reagan and Trevor Bayne were in it for a few years after Mark Martin, and then took a while for that number to come back. But yeah.
And for the Wood brothers, I always think of 121, of course.
There you go.
That's my joke. Oh, we'll end it there.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, Brandon, have you come up with a one shining moment yet? We're getting down to the
yeah. I'm ready now. Okay.
All right.
I'm giving it to some news I saw. It's not for this past weekend, but it's actually what's going to come up. And it's the other Darlington driver I was going to talk about. I'm going to give this one in future. I'm going to do something. Maybe it's unprecedented. I'm going to give a future one shining moment to the news that Carson Hocevar got that he's going to be filling in on the 42 for Darlington this weekend. And if there's a team that really shines in one place and never anywhere else, it's because of that Eric Jones victory at Darlington. And I think they're going to have some good hot rods when they come to Darlington. At least that's what I suspect. Of course, this year shows no sign of that ever being possible, but never say never. I think Carson Hocevar is a great race car driver, and he's still making his way through. He had some really great battles there with Grant Enfinger at Milwaukee. He's up for a truck title. He's been proving himself. I'm excited to see him in a cup car at a driver's track at Darlington Raceway, and hopefully he can make that hunk of junk fly.
Absolutely. Let me just clarify one thing. I got my timeline a little bit mixed up. I just looked it up. The Roush 6 went away in 2013. It was part-time the years before and after, but it was after Reagan was in the car and before Trevor Bayne got in. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr. was part-time in 2012, and then Trevor Bayne brought it back when he went full-time with Roush. I knew that 6 went away for a period of a few years, but
it's okay, Ben. They're already yelling at you on Twitter, so yeah, you're already too late
because they didn't do that enough this past week. We don't need to reopen old wounds there. But on that note, let me give my one shining moment. I want to give a call to the ARCA Menard series and a tweet or a post, I guess I should say now, with this whole X stuff. But ARCA champions and graduates, they won all 3 races this weekend. Grant Enfinger, the 2015 champion, Justin Allgaier, the 2008 champion, and Chris Buescher, the 2012 champion. So as imperfect as I think ARCA can be at times, as much as I think they certainly have some things that they should work on to try to strengthen the series, you can't deny that it is still used as a great proving grounds for a lot of young drivers and a lot of seasoned veterans as well to work their way up through the ranks and try to get better funding and better programs and a better future for themselves. And those 3 certainly have done just that. Grant Enfinger, one of the best Truck Series regulars in recent years. Justin Allgaier, one of the best Xfinity Series regulars in recent years. And we're talking about Chris Buescher as a championship contender now. I don't know if anybody had that on our bingo card at the start of this year, but shout out to the ARCA Menard series program that they have there and creating champions of tomorrow in their series today. And we've seen that this weekend in all 3 national touring series.
Yeah. It's definitely a year that Buescher will never forget, regardless of what happens. It's going to be something exciting.
No doubt. All right, well, that is going to do it for tonight's episode of Grid Live Encore. And as always, be sure to subscribe to our social media, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on all of our social media platforms, I should say. We're on X, that's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, LinkedIn, Threads, and most importantly, right here on YouTube. Be sure to join us on our journey to 1,000 subscribers and beyond. And as I mentioned at the start of the show, if you really liked what you saw tonight, if you like what you've seen on other Grid Network programming, you can visit our Patreon page. Join Colin Deschelle, Mark, Robin, and David in investing in the Grid Network, helping to keep us on the air throughout 2023 and beyond, and helping to send us to Portland International Raceway this upcoming weekend with Joe Samaniego, providing some on-site coverage for the IndyCar Series there. Our long-term goal of $500 per month will allow us to begin doing that on a more regular basis, expanding our coverage for you, the viewers. Or if you'd rather make a one-time donation, you can try the super chat options that we now have enabled here on the YouTube channel, or you can visit the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description box below as well. You can buy a coffee for your favorite on-air talent. Any amount will help us continue to grow our motorsports media outlet. Now on Wednesday, don't miss Grid Tonight with Josh Bergs, Kobe Lambeth, and Matt White. And of course, like I mentioned, big weekend for the Grid Network. Grid Live schedule will be shifting around a little bit based on the IndyCar weekend and our on-site coverage there at Portland. So stay tuned for more news on that front. In the meantime, tonight, Brandon, any final thoughts before we sign off?
Yeah, shout out to our team out there at Portland this weekend. Best of luck, and can't wait to see everything we get out there. And also, one of my favorite tracks this weekend, I can't lie to you, it's the the track too tough to tame. It was my first real like race car encounter when I was 5 years old. We were just coming by on vacation and just happened to see qualifying for a while. Never actually got to stay for the race, but that was back in 2003. So that was kind of a big year for Darlington. So it always brings back great memories, and looking forward to this weekend at Darlington and also everything else going on.
A big weekend for us here at Grid Network, of course. So stay tuned for all of our coverage this upcoming weekend as we report on site from Portland International Raceway. For Brandon Crossland, I'm Ben Schneider. Thank you all so much for watching. And as always, have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you for watching right here on the Grid Network. Be sure to subscribe and follow us all week as we are going to be covering the BidNile.com Grand Prix of Portland right here on the Grid Network. Subscribe, hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of our coverage all week long. Plus, see some of our past videos, including Life on the Grid, where we interviewed people from the motorsports industry. Thank you for watching.